got got a Wraith Seer, Forge World, and a Farseer with Fortune and Runes. Got a squad of Warp Spiders as well and Fast Attack, as well as a new Nightwing conversion that recently Dan put together for me as part of my wife's birthday gift. I've got 2 squads of 10 Wraithguard, as well as 2 Wraith Lords. I've got a squad of Storm Guardians, actually. They're ground bound, which is going to make things difficult for them, I imagine. I got a squad of Dire Avengers as well, 7 strong, with twin shirking catapults on the Exarch, and a Night Spinner. That is about the extent of my list. Light on bodies for 2,000 points, but very resilient.
For troops, I have got a squad of Guardians with 2 Flamers in it. They're also led by my Uriel conversion, who has so far done very little for me except die and not kill things. So let's see if that changes. We've got 2 other Guardian squads, both with Shuriken cannons, and the Warlocks have Destructor. I've got Warlocks with 3 Destructors, a few other powers sprinkled in. All of those are traveling in Wave Serpents. Then I have a Nightwing for my only fast attack choice. For heavy support, I have a Warp Hunter and 2 Fire Prisms. And what was it you said? Not a lot of bodies, but heavily resilient?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are concluding deployment right now. Dan has his grav tank set up on the on that long edge. My spirit host over here is set up. I have just about everything in deployment. I only have my Warp Spiders in reserve. Dan has his Nightwing in reserve. Now I'm going to offer him the opportunity to steal initiative.
No!
No, he failed. Okay, let's begin the game. Top of turn 1 has concluded. My force has moved forward with the exception of the Night Spinner, which is hanging back. I took some shots at various grav tanks. The Fire Prism on the far end of the board up in the corner there, that cannot shoot. The one of the Wave Serpents over on this end, that one there, that cannot shoot. And both that and the
Warp Hunter?
Warp Hunter, yes. Both of them are under the effects of the Night Spinner's web, so they'll need to roll for dangerous terrain when they move next turn. Beyond that, very little happened. I do have Feel No Pain on my gun Wraith Lord in the middle there, and I've got Fortune on my right side flank Wraithguard unit. So now we're on to the bottom of turn 1. We'll see what Dan does.
At the bottom of turn 1, it may not look like I accomplished much, but I actually had a really good turn. My Fire Prism that couldn't move, I scooted it to get the cover save from moving fast. I remembered to cast Fortune, which was huge. I immobilized that Nightwing. So at this point I can kind of pick and choose my battles with it after this next turn. The Night Spinner both got immobilized by the Fire Prism, and the shot from the D cannon scattered onto it and also glanced it and managed to blow off the Shadow Weaver cannon. So that was, or the Doom Weaver rather. Otherwise, I just killed a couple Guardians, so it doesn't look like much, but I actually feel really good about what I did, and that probably is just as important as anything else.
Bottom of turn 2, I just completed my my phase, and my line moved forward again. Unfortunately for me, all of my damage was nullified by cover saves, which were on 5-ups actually. Very impressive. My Wraith Seer has an ability where in a certain proximity, any Wraith units, whatever they are firing at reduces its cover save value by 1, but that had no effect whatsoever. Other than that, well, My Sword Wraithlord's getting pretty close right there. Next turn, hopefully something will be close enough to charge and try for a 6. I'm occupying 3 of the objectives, but that doesn't make that much of a difference on top of turn 2. And my right flank Wraithguard unit has both Feel No Pain and Fortune down on it right now. So hopefully any damage it will take will be nullified. But anyone's guess as to what kind of damage I'm going to be taking at the bottom of the turn.
Bottom of turn 2, most of what I did was I just moved my units to the flanks. I was able to shake the Nightwing so it can't shoot this turn. My firepower was surprisingly ineffective against it. I really didn't think I'd do that little. The Wave Serpent that's in the back of Clay's lines has moved 24 inches, went flat out, so it has its cover save, and I figured I'd give Clay one target he could focus on this turn rather than the things that are on his flanks. The Warp Hunter managed to pin the Guardians back there, and the Fire Prism also did a little bit of damage. Now they're down to just 4 guys, 3 guys, just a couple guys holding that point, but I'm going to continue working to thin them out. The Dire Avengers took no damage from the Fire Prism, so I still have to contend with them.
Top of turn 3, my Warp Spiders came in on target in their Deep Strike right in the corner here behind the Warp Hunter. Unfortunately, I completely duffed my attack rolls and my penetration rolls. I only got 1 glance, so it can't shoot next turn. And meanwhile, I pushed forward with my Wraith units on the right flank here, and I managed to destroy the Fire Prism with shooting and then charging with my Wraith Guard, who then consolidated forward. And my Sword Wraithlord managed to charge into the Wave Serpent, failed to do any hits though. On the other side of the board, the left flank, my Gun Wraithlord doubled back to attempt to deal with the Wave Serpent there. However, it failed to inflict any damage. My Wraithguard moved up, failed to inflict any damage on one of the Wave Serpents over there. And my Wraith Seer in the center failed to inflict any damage on the Wave Serpent as well. I currently have Feel No Pain on the left flank Wraithguard and Fortune on the right flank Wraithguard. So hopefully that will help me survive at the bottom of turn 3.
For the bottom of turn 3, I managed to all but wipe out the Dire Avengers. The last one left is the ever difficult to kill Exarch, who is sitting on that spot. He went to ground, so he's virtually pinned, but he did not break. My Seer Council popped out of their ride and mauled one of the Wraithlords. He went down very quickly. The Guardians popped out over here, wiped out his other Guardian squad that had been holding this objective, and the worst part of the turn for me was the Nightwing, which once again deep struck off the table, and Clay got to place it. So he placed it in the most useless position possible, which, fair play to him. The Warp Hunter ran and hid from the Warp Spiders, who will probably be attempting to hunt it down, but will have much less of a chance than they did before, but that's when they tend to perform the best for him. And from here on, we will see how the rest of the game plays out.
Top of turn 4, rather. I moved forward, I rather moved backwards with half my army. My Wraithguard on the right flank continued to advance, came up behind and pummeled the Nightwing. Or rather, they didn't have to, no. It was the Warp Spiders who killed the Nightwing. I doubled back with my Warp Spiders and finished the Nightwing off. My Wraithguard kind of stuck themselves in limbo in the middle of the board so they could shoot at the Wave Serpent behind them. Unfortunately, they failed to inflict any lasting damage. It just can't shoot. My Wraithlord attempted to charge a Skimmer again, failed to do anything. In the middle of the backfield, I tried to double back to get into close combat with the with the Seer Council. My Wraith Seer did make it in. However, my Wraithguard squad was out by the barest of lengths. And my Dire Avenger Exarch remained where it was, essentially pinned, as Dan mentioned, because he went to ground last turn. And that is all that I have left on the field, so it's becoming a battle for my life.
Bottom of turn 4, I managed to wipe out the last Dire Avenger, which was the Exarch, through a lot of concentrated shooting from the Warp Hunter, Prism, Wave Serpents.
No, that was just the Guardian squad that took out the Exarch. Or are you segueing?
I'm segueing.
Oh, you're segueing.
I managed to knock down most of the Wraithguard unit here, which was at full size before firing this turn. They were also fortuned and had conceals, so a lot of wounds happened. Clay didn't make as many saves as he would have liked, but there was a lot of firepower that they took. Uriel managed to cause 4 hits, but then only 2 wounds on the 2 and up. So the Wraithlord struck back, hit once, wounded, and I made my invulnerable save. Then I just moved that Wave Serpent. Otherwise, the match is moving towards an end.
Top of turn 5, and the remainder of my force is charged backwards. My Wraithlord fell to Dan's Uriel look-alike, and my Wraithguard charged in the meantime to finish him off. The remains of my Wraithguard squad and my Farseer charged the Seer Council with minimal effect. There was just 1 casualty in the fight. That was one of the Wraithguard. Beyond that, I have nothing left besides the Warp Spiders, which moved around this turn. Otherwise, they have done nothing. So that is the bottom of, or the top of turn 5 rather. We'll move to the bottom and see where the game goes from there.
At the bottom of turn 5, my Guardians moved on to an objective there, another set there. There's a prolonged combat in the center of the table where I lost 2 Warlocks and Clay lost a Warlock and a Wraithguard. I managed to stop the Night Spinner from shooting its Twin Link Shuriken catapults, and Clay has moved on to this objective, but he did suffer a heavy toll from the Wraithguard, or to the Wraithguard.
It's the top of turn 6, and things are definitely slowing down. I only have 3 units left. I've got a depleted squad of Wraithguard hanging out by this objective. There are troops, so they are controlling it. I've got my Warp Spiders, which are advancing up along the flank, but there is not much that they can really do because it's mainly grav tanks that are out in the open right now. Meanwhile, well, I guess I have 4 units because I have my Farseer attached to the single remaining Wraithguard that was once a squad right there. They actually managed to win combat. They made all of their saves and inflicted 1 wound, but it was to no avail. They both remain locked, and that is the conclusion of my turn, and perhaps the last one.
At the bottom of turn 6, I managed to forget to cast Fortune and Doom, but luckily it didn't matter because I managed to kill off the Wraithguard before he got the strike, and I killed off the Farseer. Right now Clay's just got a handful of guys left on the table. I did pretty good at capturing table dominance, and Clay is going to roll to see if the game continues for turn 7, which it does.
And in the traditions of a dying man violently thrashing out against his attacker, my Warp Spiders and my Wraithguard moved up off the objective to shoot at the encroaching Seer Council. They managed to take out 2. The Wraithguard was out of range, but the Warp Spiders, they inflicted a couple casualties and then jumped back behind cover. And now Dan gets to massacre me, perhaps tabling my forces, but we'll have to see.
At the end of turn 7, the end of the game, Clay has a single Wraithguard, Warlock, and Warp Spider Exarch left. Other than that, I control the board. I actually took it on all 3 missions, getting table quarters, objectives, and kill points.
Total massacre. My force didn't do so well this time. I was going to have fun. I brought my spirit host out, and I was just looking to have a good time. And Dan comes out with this. Oh, this is really gonna piss Clay off. 7, 8 grab tanks.
6, I think 7.
7 grab tanks and a night shade. Nightwing. I wrote Nightshade on my army list. I don't know.
No wonder it got shut down.
Yeah, my vehicles didn't do so well in that the first opportunity they had to get destroyed, they took it. Rather, they took it to get immobilized and not shoot. At the bottom of turn 1, my Night Spinner got immobilized and its weapon was destroyed. My Night Wing got immobilized, and these were like the only 3 shots that he made on them, other than the 2 shuriken cannons I think you had on the right flank.
Yeah,
those didn't do anything. But besides that, things held out pretty well until Dan. I got overextended because honestly, the mobile assets of my army went down pretty quick. My ranged firepower, I was reduced to just walking forward and running towards the nearest living thing, trying to kill it. It didn't work out so well though.
Early in the game, I wasn't as much focused on the objectives because I knew that's really what would be moving forward turn 5 and 6. So what I did instead was I just flanked Clay and tried to take out his 2 softest scoring units, the Dire Avengers and the Guardians, and then I just wanted to load up on the kill points. So I focused early on the Night Spinner and Nightwing, crippled them both, did manage to kill the Nightwing early, didn't kill the Night Spinner until the very end, but that was really what all my effort went into. I didn't really do much damage to the Wraithguard units early, which is different than the way I normally play against you.
Honestly, it worked out fine because it took a turn of shooting each, a turn of focusing, and the units were gutted. They didn't perform so well in terms of survivability. Dan actually definitely had the right approach because I was putting Feel No Pain and Fortune down on a Wraithguard unit each turn. And it wasn't until the Seer Council got out and I was forced to deal with them in my backfield when I charged the Wraith Seer in, and unfortunately my Wraithguard squad was a fraction of an inch out. The Wraithguard squad ended up getting bombarded because they were all bunched up and I lost 7 Wraithguard. Meanwhile, my Wraith Seer just simply threw itself away in a full turn of combat against the whole Seer Council. So that kind of did not pan out. However, the remains of my Wraithguard squad did do well when they got in with the Seer Council. They would probably be my unit of the match, even though I don't really feel as though any of my units really performed up to their capabilities.
I would say for me, my unit of the match would be the Seer Council, because once they hit the table, they immediately vaporize a Wraith Lord, but just putting them down on the table, you were making comments, so I knew that I had instantly shifted your plan.
Yeah.
Did you forget what?
I had a general idea that I knew that was the unit that was in there.
In there, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a matter of I was trying to just inflict casualties, destroy grav tanks where I could, and I assumed that you expected me to try and destroy that, so you would pile out and then be able to move out and charge me.
I was actually hoping you would move your Wraithguard back earlier. You actually moved them forward for another turn, which surprised me. And I thought I was actually going to twist your whole force to take on the Seer Council. That was the original reason I moved them back.
Yeah.
And you went for a more limited approach during that turn before they popped out. And that surprised me. I wasn't entirely prepared for it. I thought you were just going to keep marching until you took that far objective. And then I really don't know what I would have done at that point. But that's what I was worried about.
Well, I think I hesitated a little too much. My Wraithguard fluctuated in the middle of the board for a little too long. If I committed more backwards, I would have been able to more effectively. I would have been able to wipe out the Seer Council because I would have been able to shoot and charge
Yeah.
with the squad, with the Wraith Seer and the and the Wraith Guard squad and the Farseer all charging your Seer Council. They would have done very well.
Yeah.
But I decided not to, and that was a poor decision. I mean, if I had been able to, for instance, take out the grav tank and spill him out early, that would have been good. But it just didn't work out. So, and in the end, I inflicted very few casualties. Really, I shot up, like 4 guardians in the end. I took out the Nightwing, which you scattered off the table, and I was able to place in front of me. I mean, if I didn't take that out, that would have been embarrassing. And I took out one of the fire prisms. So all in all, it was largely a massacre. I only had 3 models on the table left at the end.
Yeah, and I wasn't even expecting to do that much damage to you, just because I waited so long before I started to focus fire on your Wraith units, and I know how much damage they take, and then you had Feel No Pain, and you had Fortune, and there were 2 big hits in that one big shooting barrage turn where Fortune and Conceal just didn't hold up for you. I think you made 1 save out of a number of them between the Fire Prism, Focused Fire, and the Warp Hunter Blast. And that really put a difference on what you could do supporting your Wraith Seer against the Warlock squad.
And I mean, even if I had lost a few guys, any number more Wraith Guards having survived that barrage would have made the difference.
Yeah.
Because it came down to you were fizzling out on attacks, and I made a ton of armor saves in combat against the Seer Council. It just wasn't enough. By the second half of the game, I just did not have enough models.
And the thing that probably bit you the hardest was when your Warp Spiders came down with a perfect drop.
Oh, yeah.
And then they just fizzled out on the firing, and all they did was stop the Warp Hunter for shooting for 1 turn.
And that was really a crucial letdown, because the Warp Hunter is my number 1 threat, bar none, every game, because it's something that can easily cut a hole in a Wraith Guard squad. It doesn't matter that they're toughness 6 or they have conceal. I mean, you can either get closer and drop in that 12-inch flamer template that'll ignore conceal, or it'll just drop its large blast template down, and it'll do a lot of damage either way. So I had to kill that Warp Hunter, and it just didn't work out, and you got away. So there was nothing left for my Warp Spiders to do other than they took down the Nightwing, but anything could have taken down the Nightwing. So otherwise, they were pretty useless.
And you had a lot of glancing hits and even penetrating hits where you rolled either a 1 or a 2, and
that was most of them.
Yeah,
really.
That was your big problem. It wasn't that you had a problem hitting or a problem getting to the armor. It was just the actual damage roll itself, and that's something that potentially in 6, based on all the rumors going around, will be adjusted. That'll be a huge difference.
I think you would have won this game either way. You had a very well equipped force to deal with my strong points, my lack of mobility, my lack of ranged heavy weaponry. But that would have definitely made the game at least a contest. As far as I was concerned, by the top of turn 3, I was fairly certain how this game was going to go. But definitely, it's a pretty frequent trend I've noticed. Because I don't really have that much of a ranged gun line. I always have a couple key pieces of long range firepower. So when I start rolling shaken and stunned repeatedly, it really kills my options late game. So that's definitely one of the weaknesses of my army. I'd like to say that it's just because I'm unlucky, but I mean, if that's happening to me, I should just bring more firepower at range, which I still haven't been doing.
Well, you had I think you actually had a fair amount from my perspective. It was just you got unlucky on the dice rolls for the damage, and I think that makes the long range firepower you do have when that happens, because you got off some shots with your Nightwing in the first turn where you got a penetrating shot with a bright
lance and a pen, yeah.
and you ended up just stopping a fire prison from shooting.
Yeah.
And that absolutely killed what could have been a huge momentum setter right at the top of the game.
Yeah. I was hoping that I would kill a grav tank at the start. That would have definitely changed things, but it wasn't meant to be.
So I think that's a good thing to just sort of remember, was that the dice did turn against you in some ways. I think you played it as well as you could for the most part, like you said, with the exception of the hesitating in the center. And it's funny, my force was actually, it was just the Warlock squad backed up by Guardians, and they were all tanks. In some ways I did it because I know how much you hate Mac. And I thought it would be a good way to remind you.
Go out with fifth and with a bang. Yeah, I won't miss the transport rules in this edition. I really hope, and as far as we've been hearing so far, things are going to change in terms of the survivability of vehicles and the effectiveness of troops in transports, especially the way that objectives are scored as well. I cannot wait, and I hope that a lot of the rumors we have been hearing are true in terms of that respect, because I don't like how foolproof the maneuvering game is right now.
Yeah. Forcing units out of transports in order to score, if that rumor is accurate, will be a big change for a lot of armies like this one, because, well, I did have the Guardians out, and
you didn't even need to, really.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference in a normal game where you're just sitting in what is essentially a mobile fortress.
Yeah, and you don't need to commit.
Yeah.
You didn't have to commit in this game. Honestly, you could have actually won even just keeping your Seer Council up. You could have won just by dancing around.
Yeah, but I really didn't want to do that.
I do appreciate that. I was glad I was able to actually shoot something.
Yeah.
In any case, it was a good game. Hopefully this isn't the last game in 5th that we'll play. You never know. At Kineticon, the Saturday tournament is allegedly on 5th edition rules still, but as I know, because I've been going for several years, everything's always in the state of flux right until you get to the tournament and things start. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, another good way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Good game.
Good game.